Hey, what's up you guys? This is Rob from Gay Guy Plays, and today on the Quick Draw, we finish up our latest threesome when we take a look at the Dual Raza. So the Dual Raza is next in the installment of Soma influenced weapons. This time the iconic magazine has been retooled into a pair of scythes that, much like its predecessor, have a statistical focus on critical chance and critical damage. Now, to be honest with you, the dual sword category is overflowing with crit-based melee, so the question here is, does the Dual Raza make the cut? So you can pick up the Dual Raza's blueprints in the Tenno lab of your clan dojo, provided that you've completed the appropriate research. However, if your clan is slacking and may never get around to starting up the research, you can always pick it up in the market pre-built, along with a catalyst and weapon slot for 175 plat. And don't forget, it is also available in a bundle for 530 plat, but I'll let you take a look at those details yourself. Now, the Dual Raza's primary damage type is slashing with a bit of puncture and a tiny bit of impact. So as you all have heard a million times over, it's great versus the infested and other fleshy targets, but suffers against armor. So as always, use the proper elemental combos to guarantee the optimal amount of damage. Seriously though, DE, get me some impact, puncture, or any elemental weapon, please. I've legitimately scripted this slashing line so many times that my mouth is on autopilot. It just completely takes over. Kinda like that time I lost my gag reflex, but that's a different story. So the Dual Raza in its own right is a fairly decent weapon. Its base damage is on the higher end of most mid-range weapons. It's got a 20% crit chance as well as a 3 times damage multiplier, which makes it ideal for a crit build. Its attack speed is a bit on the slow side, however, after you've stacked up a few crits using Berserker, it won't be anything to worry about. Now, its status chance is quite lacking, but that isn't really much of a concern since for most content, its damage output will render status effects fairly useless. Now, with all that said, one of the big issues that the Dual Raza face is the fact that there are already several critical weapons in the dual sword category. As a point of reference, with the max crit and crit damage mod, the Dual Raza sit at 110.58 damage per second. The Dual Zoran sit at 103.68, the Dual Iker sit at 110 as well, but does have Toxin as its base element, which when combined appropriately is awesome for taking advantage of the 75% damage bonuses. And lastly, with its Syndicate Augment, the Dual Cleavers sit at 167.33. However, keep in mind that that does eat up a mod slot. So as compared to the rest of the bunch, the Dual Raza feel a little standard. And keep in mind that list is solely in the dual sword category and doesn't include other crit-based heavy hitters. However, the Dual Raza do have one distinct advantage over some of its counterparts. It has a really cute set of matching pistols, and in my opinion, its model looks far sexier than the rest of the bunch. Now, speaking of a bunch, can we talk? Okay, so while I quite enjoy using the Dual Raza, I do have to say that it kind of reminds me of an overused sex trick. See, the first time that DU whipped out melee crit builds, I was like, oh, I like this. This is really good. I did not know you could do it like that. The next time they sprung it on us, I was like, oh, this again. It's definitely my new favorite. But let's face it, at this point, they've used this trick a whole lot. I mean, really think about it. Obex, Kogaki, and Karos, Fragor, Torpedo, Dual Zoran, Dual Cleavers, hell, at least they got a little dirty with the Dual Ichor. And now the Dual Raza, which is probably the most bog standard of the bunch. I mean, they really got their hands in it with the Dual Ripkas, and that time with the Atarax was kinky as fuck. But with the Dual Raza, it just feels like they're going through the motions. It doesn't feel special anymore. I mean, if you're pulling out the sex tricks, you really have to commit. You need to get all up in there and lay some Sindo Prime action on that ass. Alright, clearly there is some residual sexual frustration coming through, so let's get back to the quick draw. So all in all, I won't deny it, I do like the Dual Raza, but more for its weapon model than anything else. Its damage is a little lackluster, especially when compared to some of the other crit-based weapons, and the fact that it shares its slashing damage type with several of them doesn't help its case either. In addition, I'm not fond of the stance that matches its polarity, and it also comes with no innate polarities, which means that if you want to put some pure elemental damage mods on this, you may have to burn a forma to do so. Now, as I'm scripting this, I'm completely second-guessing why in the world I'm as fond of this weapon as I am. But then again, when it comes to threesomes, looking sexy is definitely what matters the most. So thank you all for watching another episode of The Quick Draw. Be sure to check out the Dual Raza's counterparts, the Axomati and the Soma Prime. Yes, we're completely skipping over that Soma video. Now be sure to do all the things that I ask you to do at the end of every one of these, and as always, stay tuned for more mouth takeovers here at A Gay Guy Plays. So Rebecca tuned into my most recent livestream, and apparently she learned a whole lot. Oh, fuck my life.